today I'm bringing you with me to collect some mushrooms, but not necessarily just to eat. I also am wanting to make some spore print art. So someone actually commented on my video a little while ago mentioning spore prints and how she was making some art with them, and I thought that was really cool. I've known about spore print art for a while, and I've actually done a little bit of looking on Pinterest and stuff for some inspiration. I love art, I love making art of any kind. I particularly love sort of chalk pastels and stuff, which is then watercolour. I figured this is right up my street. I'm going to go and collect some paper to place the mushroom heads on, and they'll release their spores onto the paper overnight. Just based on some research that I've done, the spore prints that are most common are going to be white spore prints and brown spore prints, and like a reddy sort of rusty colour brown. White spore prints are most common in the Amanita family, and brown spore prints are quite common as well. The Agaricus family, for instance, so the ones that you'll find in your fields, like horse mushrooms, they will have brown spore prints. Other more interesting colour spore prints are some things like boletes. So some of the bolete family have olive coloured spore prints, so brown with a bit of a tint of green in them. Also you can get sort of light pinkish sort of coloured spore prints, so the wood bluet, which is a lovely mushroom apparently to eat, which I've never found before, but it looks a little bit like bluish purplish, to have like a light sort of pink spore. There's a real scope here to sort of produce some sort of really lovely sort of mutish earthy toned art, so I'm really keen to see what I can find today. With spore prints, you might assume that if the gills are one colour, that means that their spore prints are going to be that colour. An amethyst deceiver, for instance, which I showed you in my last sort of foraging video, beautiful, gorgeous, purple all over mushroom. You'd think, oh okay, the spore's probably going to be purple as well if the whole mushroom is purple, but no, they actually have white spores, so it can be a little bit confusing. And the things that I picked today, some of them I won't know what the spore print is until I get back and maybe ID them. I have this really lovely sort of old foraging book. So I found this book a long time ago in a charity shop. It's still got the sticker on it. It's £1.50, and that book tells you what the spore print is. So I've just opened this on the brown birch boletus. That mushroom has a yellowish brown cinnamon coloured spore print, for instance. This is what I'm probably going to refer to when I'm trying to work out what the spore prints are. The mushrooms that I'll be picking today as well, they're not going to be super old because older mushrooms would have already released their spores, most likely. Yeah, let's see what we find. I'll bring you along with me. I picked sort of this darker blue paper for the light spore prints, and then I also got, I didn't want to just get white because I feel like white is an unnatural colour, so I got this like taupe sort of colour, kind of like a very light sandy brown, and I think this might be quite nice for the darker spore prints and like the rusty red spore prints. So I've never done this before, so this is very new for me too, so we're learning together. The only thing with it being a bit deeper into autumn now, so we're into November, is that there's so many leaves on the ground, so it's going to be a struggle to kind of find things because they're going to be tucked away under a bed of leaves. So I'm going to have to do some rummaging around in the forest today. finally come across something that's worth showing, and not something I would necessarily be picking for the spore prints because it's a bracket fungus and it's not coming out of the forest floor, so it's not got that nice round shape. So this is of course one of our beautiful birch polypores. I've never seen one growing in this shape before. Birch polypores, they are good for medicinal use, not good as like an edible in the sense of putting it in your food, but you can obviously peel off the top of a birch polypore and wrap it around you as sort of a plaster, and it sort of fixates really nicely, which is good to know if you injure yourself when you're out walking. I also think it has other medicinal properties which I'll maybe pop up on the screen. Maybe like an antiseptic, I think my partner said before, but I'm not too sure. Not one that we'll be picking today for the spore prints though. Right, I think I'm going to move to a different section of woodland because I'm not having a great deal of luck here. Yeah, I think it's just the shift in a couple of weeks and the trees losing their leaves. It's just it's just changing the experience. It's as I say, a bit more sort of challenging. So yeah, let's head into a different forest with some different trees, see what we come across somewhere else. Some sort of coral fungus growing here. So please do tell me if you recognise what this is. Came across my first amanita that's already been picked. Over at the base, the skirt on the stem, which is still attached. White gills, characteristic of amanitas. I believe all of them. I think all amanitas have white gills. And then get the head. So the fact that this is cracked makes me think it's a false death cap. If I smell it, yeah, it smells a bit like raw potatoes. I do think this is a parasol mushroom. Parasols are edible. This one looks a little bit older than I would like, so I'm probably going to leave it. But that ring, that can be moved up and down. Basically, if there's snake skin on the stem of this, like black dotted where it's grown so quickly, it makes it a parasol. If it doesn't have that, it's a shaggy parasol, which supposedly can make some people a bit unwell. So parasol is safer. But yeah, one I'm going to leave just because it looks a bit old. I think these are a better example of the false death cap. Pleased because I've just found a mushroom that I've been seeing a lot in this bit of woodland, but it's actually young enough for me to kind of take for art. So this, I believe, is a brittle gill. In the brittlegill family. So they tend to have white gills, these, but they break away really easily. I'm not going to demonstrate that now just because I want to use it for my art. But if I was to snap the stem on this, which I'll do when we get back to the apartment, it would snap a bit like chalk. Stopped for a quick break to eat the sandwich I remember to bring with me today. be the golden russula that we found today. Does look very similar. Yeah, he does look pretty golden. Ochre yellow spores. It also says rare, so I'm now a little bit sceptical that I've picked one of those. This might be more a common yellow russula, might be what I found. Probably a bit more likely cream spore prints, which would make more sense. But the spore prints would obviously help me identify what it actually is, and if it was a golden one, or whatever it was called, golden russula, then we'll know based on the spore prints. So there's the lovely wood bluet I was talking about in the car. It has a pinkish spore print. Yeah. So I think what I found today in the pine forest earlier was a false step cap, which is the bottom one. Yeah, kind of has that nice sort of palish green head, the one that we found, but spore print white, to be expected. The webcap, and I think all of these may have been the same thing, but webcap, because it very clearly has a web that attaches it to its stem. It feels a bit premature, but I am actually going to start heading back to the car. Hasn't been the best woodland walk. Yeah, surprising. You just never know what your luck's going to be like when you forage. I think this is an old blusher potentially. Yeah, I think it's starting to blush. Just found another fly agaric. So in previous videos, I don't think I've actually really gone into detail about fly agarics and why they're so fascinating. So they've got this reputation as sort of being a poisonous mushroom, and they are toxic, but they also have psychedelic properties, which is super interesting. Came over from some of the Nordic European countries where there were sort of shamans in, I think it was the Sami cultures, who would literally use this as part of their, I don't know, as part of sort of, I suppose, spiritual awakenings. But it's that fairy tale mushroom as well that everyone kind of knows of and easy to spot because they're beautifully red. I'm just pleased I found a bolete today because I wasn't going very well. I think it's a birch bolete, I would think, but I'll check that when I get back. I've just found an edible mushroom, which I've never found before. Really, really tasty apparently. They had this actually in a really fancy restaurant that my sister and her partner went to not too long ago. And it's called hen of the woods. So people think that it's chicken on the menu, but actually it's a mushroom. And the reason it's called hen of the woods is because it looks like sort of, I suppose, the backside of a chicken. I am going to try and pick some of this off, because as I say, it's served in gourmet restaurants. It's meant to be a very tasty mushroom. left my glasses when I went to look at a mushroom. I think, thankfully, because I'm vlogging, I have footage of where I've left them, where I remember when I last had them. And it's quite a walk away, so back we go. Oh, wish me luck. The relief I'm feeling right now. Oh my god. These are not coming off my face again today. But this is what I've been left with. This looks pretty old and they've been a little bit mangled from the bag. The best is probably the blusher, which I think is this one. And I'm not sure what this is, this one. But that's still pretty well intact. Same with this one, just a bit dirty, and also this little false death cap. So we need to ID them to decipher if they go on dark or light paper. And then I'm going to cut the stems and leave them overnight and look at them on Saturday, I think. So a brown birch bolete, which I think is what this is, even if it is a bit manky, has a yellowish brown cinnamon coloured spore print. So know the whites, so we've got our blusher, false death cap. Yeah, that's a false death cap head as well. The mascara there. So brittle gills, didn't we? I think they have a whitish colour. These guys. This brown one, he looks a bit small for a roll rim for me though. I'm not too sure about that. If he is a roll rim, he's rust or ochre brown. I don't know, this is looking most similar to a miller at the moment. Oh, I'm not sure. What does it grow with? Often with wavy edges, which it does have wavy edges. Has a greyish white, frosted, suede-like surface. It is greyish white. So is this the miller? And if so, the miller is edible. The red one I found doesn't look to be in here. I'm going to take the risk of putting that on the light one. We're going to assume that these are miller mushrooms and put them on the dark paper. So next step I think is to cut the stems off and then we'll place them on the paper, and we're going to have to put something over them to encourage them to drop their spores, and it will also like keep them confined, if that makes sense. Or bother with this brittle gill because it's a bit, oh there we go, that's better, that's a better example. The chalk, it's a bit too broken, so I think we're going to leave that. Okay, so I've got these on my little art desk in the corner of the bedroom. Yeah, we'll just have to find something to cover. So I've used the old baking equipment. Let's see if this works, and we'll check in on them tomorrow evening, maybe Saturday morning. Let's see what it turns out like.